Hi, I'm Eddie Patton, a neurologist in Houston, Texas, and I currently serve as chair of the Medical Economics Committee of the Texas Neurological Society. I'm excited to bring you this edition of the Business of Neurology. This video series is sponsored by the Texas Neurological Society. The goal of this series is to help members of the Texas Neurological Society understand certain aspects of the business of neurology. Artificial intelligence is making its way into healthcare at a rapid pace. But are you prepared for this technology and understand how to use it and implement it in your clinic? In this series, we're going to explore AI and specifically how it is being used and implemented in practices. My guest today is Dr. Justin Rousseau. Dr. Rousseau is a neurologist with a board certification in clinical informatics and a master's degree in biomedical informatics. He currently holds the position of the Deputy Chief Informatics for Neurosciences at UT Southwestern. Before joining the team at UT Southwestern, he co-founded and co-directed the Data Core, which is a part of the Dell Med IT Enterprise Data Intelligence at Dell Medical School at UT in Austin. Current projects include the Early Psychosis Intervention Network of Texas, the Texas Childhood Trauma Research Network, and using electronic health record data and natural language processing to support referrals to neurology for headaches. Dr. Rousseau has a wealth of knowledge that he's going to share with us on this topic and help us to navigate this evolving terrain. Justin, thanks for having me, and I'm very excited about diving into this interesting and ever-evolving topic of artificial intelligence. Let's start off very broadly, and can you tell me, in your view, what is AI? And specifically, really dive down the difference between artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence.
Sure. So AI, or artificial intelligence, I see it as a tool, and as a biomedical informaticist and clinical informaticist, a tool to help us in healthcare to make decisions and process all the information that we have about patients to make those clinical decisions. Artificial intelligence is our systems that we've developed that we'd normally think a person would be able to do. And so that could be different functions like, so let's say computer vision, or processing text, or making decisions, or predicting outcomes. I'd fit all those things into artificial intelligence. Now you mentioned artificial intelligence versus augmented intelligence. I read about that in so the American Medical Association put out a report about artificial intelligence. They are referring to it as augmented intelligence. And I see where they're coming from with it, because ultimately any decision that we make using the tools that are available to us are going to be the decision of the doctor and the patient together. And so any of these tools are going to then augment our work. And so even if we're using something from the field of artificial intelligence, I can see how it makes sense to label it as, well, we're going to call this augmented intelligence. In the fundamentals of biomedical informatics, so Chuck Friedman had this paper, The Fundamental Theorem of Biomedical Informatics, where he says, so fundamentally informatics and biomedical informatics is the human plus the computer is greater than the human alone.
Okay.
And what it is not is the computer performs better than the human.
Okay.
And so here I see where we're getting into, if we're thinking about the concept of artificial intelligence, some type of autonomous system that makes a decision and an action alone or on its own compared to human. That's where we're sitting over here versus, well, let's pair together that technology, that tool with the human, and together then the human and the tool can be better than the human alone.
Yeah, and that gets to one big point nowadays, because one of the biggest fears is that just like other scope issues, will eventually the computer take over the doctor's work or do better. We see that certainly in radiology with a number of studies that trying to prove that for instance, a technology can find spinal abnormalities with greater accuracy than the actual human reader. So, and ideally, that's kind of where we want to get working together. How do you feel about that? Will things evolve to that point where, even from a legal standpoint, we will have to be in competition? So, we didn't use this technology, maybe we may be in some type of liability, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I am optimistic for it, in that I would see it as the capabilities of the technologies that we develop get better and better, and we get better and better in how we use them, and eventually then lead to better health outcomes. I can see where people have that fear of, oh, well, this is going to replace me in what I do, but I see people thriving whenever they then adopt it and work together with it, and see it more like that partnership as opposed to competition. I do worry a bit about that legal piece that you talked about. So, in our world of documentation and having to justify all of our decisions and everything that we do, I worry that if we include the use of an AI tool in our decision-making process, whether we agree with it or we make a decision to go against what it recommends, then there's going to be a requirement that we need to document either way. And so are we then going to add to our documentation burden? That worries me.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. Can you explain to those listening in or viewing this, what is generative AI? And are there any specific considerations that organizations should take if they're considering this, or should they be restricting this new concept of generative AI?
This has been one of the coolest things that has happened, like in my lifetime, and this just happened over the last year of seeing this switch of development of generative AI, and it's from a research perspective, anyone doing work in the AI space has been having to move at lightning speed to just catch up with things or keep up with things. But essentially, generative AI is kind of flipped the switch on AI. So let's say we were using AI to identify things or classify things. Let's say give it a picture of a cat, and you have this AI tool that can say, yes, this is a picture of a cat, and you train the model on all these pictures of cats, so that then whenever it looks at pictures, you can say, okay, that's a picture of a cat. Does pretty well at that. Now all of a sudden in the last year, we've started seeing where people can input with prompts saying, make me a picture of a cat, and it will generate a picture of a cat for you. And it's wild, and put it out there so the public can do this. And so, I mean, all over people are sharing these things like, I did a picture of whatever. Same thing's happening in text as well. So ChatGPT, and these chat bots taking input prompts, and they're trained on hundreds of billions of parameters, to where you give it a prompt and it responds to you very eloquently and almost like you're talking to a person, and almost like it understands you, and so you say, give it some instructions, and it will provide very quickly a response for you, and say, hey, I want you to write me a song about neurology, and then it'll generate for you. And so, I mean, it's been amazing to see this happen.
Okay.
And so immediately then, healthcare workers are thinking, oh, well, how can we use this to save time, save on our documentation? Can we use this to help us? And the world is seeing, yeah, it can help us, but there are limitations. And it's been wild, because it seems like with every week, with every month, it gets better and better. And so anything that that you think you were testing at some point in time, it's changed by that time. Now it's doing better than what your previous performance metrics have found. So it's tough to catch up with or keep up with. And I guess to get to your question about things that you should consider, if you're going to implement something in practice. So one of the key concerns is privacy and security of data.
Okay.
And so whenever you put input prompts into ChatGPT, let's say, and let's say, hey, I want a progress note for a patient or something like that, or discharge summary for a patient. You can't just go put their EHR data or their prior notes, copy and paste them into ChatGPT, because that goes out there then to these public servers, and now you have a breach of confidential data. And so that's one primary concern. That's happening also in other areas. So like if you're reviewing grants for the NIH, you can't put grants out there and say, summarize this for me, because that's then a breach of confidentiality of those grants. And so the potential is there. Now, how do we do it in a safe way? And so some organizations are setting up their own instances of a chat bot within their own secure environments. That's costly, and making sure that it is all secure. And then how do you keep that updated? So that's one approach. That would be a better approach than having people compromise security of data. Another concern is hallucinations. So you get responses back from these chat bots, and they're very confident. It's like you're getting a customized answer out of a dictionary or an encyclopedia, or some resource that has access to all of biomedical literature. But sometimes it gets things wrong, and you don't know when that is, and so
it's almost like when AI becomes overconfident in itself, almost.
Right.
Oh.
So you have to be aware of that, and so let's say your organization has decided to implement this to generate automatic responses to patient questions. How often is it going to insert an error in there?
Yeah.
And how much oversight do you have to have of that in order to catch those errors? And that's going to fall on the clinicians to review those. And so that's how it's set up. It will draft a response to patient questions in your inbox, but you're responsible to review that and make sure there aren't any errors, and before you click send and edit and make sure that it is accurate.
Check and verify.
Yeah. It's like with how much extra time we have in our clinical day,
Exactly.
How much time are we actually saving versus adding?
Yes.
Because it will also respond back with empathy and respond back maybe in a lengthy response. And so you might be buying yourself more stuff to read.
And you mentioned that as far as saving time in clinic, and how are we going to use this technology to help us save time. And I was getting my coffee yesterday and came across, this is USA Today, Monday, May 13, 2024. And the title article on the front page is "Doctors Cautiously Adopt AI-Aided Care." And this article was about a primary care physician who was using a large language model and generative artificial intelligence to listen, transcribe, and then summarize her conversations with patients. And there have been studies that show that for physicians, for every 1 hour with a patient, they're spending 2 hours worth of desk time. So how do you think AI will actually be used to help us improve patient-physician interactions in clinics? Will it help with note-taking, documentation, or expedite like precision medicine or and so forth? So will it make our jobs easier and faster?
I think it very well can. So I fall into that camp of cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
And so I like that they're cautiously adopting AI-aided care. I think just in that exact scenario where you can pair voice recognition software that's able to differentiate between the voice of the clinician and the voice of the patient, and then take all of that and then convert it into a progress note in the way that we would normally type a progress note, separating out into the sections and maybe even adding some some interpretation in there as well. I could see that definitely helping with time, and that's my I think that's my hope overall is that the use of technology helps take our eyes away from the computer and allow us to focus more on the patient. And so
Okay.
I'm all for testing this out and trying to get there with solutions like this. We have to be cognizant of the potential unintended consequences of doing this. So like, what are we not even thinking about that could be a consequence of implementing this? So doing this in a way, adopting it in a way that we're testing it and evaluating it as rigorously as we're doing it. So pairing with someone that can dedicate their time and energy to rigorous evaluation. I think there are other approaches as well that can help us to save time and energy. So I'm with you with the spending that extra amount of time at the computer compared to for each hour that we're spending with the patients. Writing the notes for me is kind of my way of processing through the patient, and so it's kind of a mental exercise, and so that is time that isn't just clerical time. But are there ways that we can leverage technology to help get the most pertinent information in front of us in a timely manner, so that we're not having to click all through the EHR trying to find that the breadcrumbs of useful information. So that I think that's one of the biggest ways that I feel that AI and clinical informatics can help save time. So kind of thinking about like a heads-up display for like a fighter pilot. You don't want to put all the information out there, or like all the logs of this going on with their jet as they're flying it in front of their faces, and have them try to search through stuff to figure out, put the most pertinent information in front of them that they need to know in order to fly the plane and in order to make their decisions. And so let's do that for healthcare. Let's do that for neurology, and in that, so you've got the most pertinent information. There might be something in a note back 10 years ago that someone documented, or a lab value back then that you're just never going to get to because you just can't spend that amount of time. So is there a way that we can use some of these tools to sift through the data and help bring that to light and bring that to our attention?
Yeah, I'm with you on that, in that it's a balance. And I, like you, find that my assessment and plan is a good way for me to mentally recap the workup, recap what I've seen in the consult, and it helps me to process it as well. But on the flip side, anything that can reduce that administrative burden and help to make sure that there's nothing that interferes with the patient-physician relationship, seems like that would be a welcome addition in healthcare.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So shifting gears now into a little more research focus and how we use AI in research. Give us some insight on how you think artificial intelligence can help investigational medication or devices to supplement or substitute clinical trials.
Yeah, and this is actually an area that I'm pretty interested in. So in in biomedical informatics, there are subsets of clinical informatics and then clinical research informatics, and so I do quite a bit of work in the clinical research informatics of how we support clinical trials and clinical research using regular clinical care or using the electronic health record data, and so I think one of the challenges with that is that the electronic health record was not developed to be a research tool, and so EHR data has all kinds of flaws to it, and biases in the data too, and but there's such potential in that resource to support clinical trials, and so one of the things that I did in my previous job was to using EHR data define cohorts of patients.
Okay.
And so basically someone would come to us and say, I'm looking for patients who have this condition. And we'd say, okay, we could look for patients with that diagnosis code. That might get us some, but we're going to have some false positives in there and some that we miss.
Yeah.
And so how can we refine that? So are there lab values that might also help us to refine that, or medications that a patient is taking?
Okay.
You could also then look to notes. So are these conditions that you might only find in notes that you would have to then use AI tools to then extract information out in order to identify patients with a subtype of a specific headache disorder, and so there's that. There's the using AI to support identification of patients who would be eligible for clinical trials, which is I think that has massive benefits. I mean, there have been the federal government has over many years supported efforts to try to enhance accrual to clinical trials or identifying patients who are eligible for clinical trials.
Do you think we're going to get to the point where artificial intelligence apps can replace psychologists and can, help people clinically by being able to talk with them a little better than we as face-to-face humans can?
I think we're not far off, and I would like to separate out the two concepts that you said of how far away are we from replacing psychologists to how far away are we from using AI to help us have better mental health.
Okay.
And so I think we can still get the better mental health pairing AI with psychologists and with therapists. I'll call out my son. So for his middle school class or one of his class projects, he wanted to develop a mental health chatbot AI.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
That's
wow,
an
this is
impressive young man.
He didn't know all that went into it, but he was like, this is what we want to do. And so they're going to explore that over the next year.
Wow.
I've also played with some of the tools that are out there, and I could see it being a helpful tool. Like it's prompting you to share your thoughts about an experience that might be troubling and helping to reframe it. Now I would see that as being helpful if it's paired with someone that's helping guide me through it and helping to guide me through using it. I would worry about depending on it solely to improve my mental health. I think that at some point I'd start to realize, oh gosh, this isn't someone that is actually responding to me, even though it sure sounds like it. Now, there was also a study, so someone out of University of Washington, where they paired AI and a chatbot to train therapists, and so to help them to be more empathetic with their responses, and so it's kind of playing on there was a study that where like responses to patient questions were there was higher empathy to patient responses from chatbots than from physicians on some I don't know if it was like Reddit or some type of online forum, and but this one was saying, well, actually let's use the power of this tool, the power of the AI, to improve the empathy that's coming from therapists in their responses to patients. So I think we're close, and we're close together.
Okay, I like that answer. Well, let's talk about in general. Tell us a little bit more specifically about some of the things that you're doing in AI and in healthcare and neurology.
So I got a collaborative project with collaborators at Cornell and University of Pittsburgh, as well as UT Austin, where we're looking at patients who are referred from primary care to neurology for headache disorders, and could be any condition that we look at. But I thought and we thought it would be best to go for headache disorders. For how often people are referred to neurology for headaches, and that problem of, well, you've got so much information that you have to go through. If you're the neurologist and get a referral and get this referral packet with you, like, okay, here are all of our prior notes. Got patient with headaches, figure it out. Then all that time that you would have to invest in going through that and understanding the patient's story and their experience with their headaches and what they responded to, what they haven't, and them not having to go through the frustration of rehashing everything for you when you see them in the short amount of time that you have to see them. So using these AI tools such as natural language processing to pull out useful information like signs and symptoms out of the notes that aren't going to be coded anywhere else, paired with structured data, so paired with prior medications that they may have taken, okay. Lab values, so using then artificial intelligence, natural language processing, deep learning to extract that information out, and then kind of wrap it up into a package for the specialist to say, okay, well, here's everything that you need to know. So that heads up display that I spoke of earlier, like here's everything about the patient's headaches that will help you to make a better decision, make a better diagnosis. So that's what we're starting in on. We prepared that proposal before all the explosion of generative AI, and so as we were starting into it, we were saying, well, okay, what else can we do with generative AI as well? Could we then write a summary, actually write a logical summary of this patient's history based off of the prior data, based off of their own data? Can we generate a useful referral question or high quality referral question based off of that?
So y'all were doing this before the whole generative AI revolution kind of came around?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was when I started into biomedical informatics. I was immediately drawn to information that's in notes and text. The information that's so useful and rich to us, like if I'm going to go see a new consult, I'm going to go straight to the notes, and if there's like an infectious disease note, I'll go read that one because they take wonderful histories. But like that's the highest quality information, but the hardest to get out.
Absolutely.
And so that led me to find friends and collaborators who are experts in natural language processing, and so we've been doing some of that work, and then with this explosion of generative AI and large language models, now it's just I don't know, a tidal wave of activity.
And it seems like with AI, every week, every month, every week, there's just there are more up to date, new things that come out, and on just a day-to-day basis. Some of it it's kind of cool and quirky, like you were saying, generating pictures, generating these videos. You've seen some of it that has kind of taken us the wrong way with creation of music videos and interviews with politicians that aren't really there. But but overall, I like the idea of us as physicians being on the forefront, like you are, in developing this technology, as opposed to coming at it from behind, trying to catch up with the wave that's moving forward.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's how we've gotten in a whole lot of trouble with, with where EHRs were.
Yeah.
Like the thing started out not really involving the clinicians in the
Yeah.
code development of it and code design of it, and so we're catching up on that. So let's be involved, at the forefront as these new technologies are being developed and implemented and adopted, so that we can help best dictate how it's used and how to evaluate them too.
Yeah, I like that idea. Now we could do probably a whole nother talk about ethics in AI, and I think that's going to be a topic that we will dive into, say later on in this series. But introduce us to the whole topic of ethics in AI. Data responsibility, like transparency, technology misuse. You talked earlier about hallucination. Because that's on the flip side where we keep saying, what are the ethical implications of this? So give us a high-level introduction into your view of ethics in this topic.
Yeah, I think a good high-level approach is, so if we consider all the potential biases that exist in the data that we have already in electronic health record data, let's say, even just like race, ethnicity, the way that's entered into the EHR, it's not necessarily in some cases it's a self-report thing, and some places have made it to where it is a self-report so that they can improve the quality of the data, but sometimes it's also what the person registering the patient, they might decide, or even gender. If someone is transgender and they look female, then someone might document them as such in the EHR, and so then all these data then we're collecting with biases. Why are you and I applying certain diagnosis codes to patients as we're doing our diagnostic workup? It's not necessarily representing ground truth. And so then if we build and use AI technologies off of these data, and they're trained on these data, then that can perpetuate all those biases and then can cause harm. And so we really need to look at then, whenever we do implement an AI tool, a new technology, we need to look at, well, what is the impact of this, and what harm can it cause? There are other ethical issues, like you mentioned, transparency. So like all these models that we have in a black box that give us an answer, and we don't have good explainability of those models. If we use those to make a decision, then how do we get buy-in from the patient that we've based a decision off of, well, this AI model that we really don't understand? Now, I get that there are medications that we use that we don't understand well how they work, or but we know that they do work based off of research that we've done.
Uh-huh.
And so we could also take a similar approach with AI and with these tools that we put into use, but we need to rigorously test them and understand then if we are going to use this, then we would expect this outcome. And so that's something that we could turn back to and say, well, okay, this is how we justified why we listen to the AI.
Okay. Wow. Man, this has been such an exciting talk and so important. I hear all the time from physicians, and just like I said, USA Today is making national news about this wave that's coming upon us in healthcare. But I do think it's vitally important that we as clinicians understand what's going on, how it can be implemented in a day-to-day basis to help you, whether it be, say, through transformative, like helping you with document patient visits and so forth, and that we have industry experts like yourself on the front end as we develop this technology. So do you have any final thoughts or any closing thoughts you want to leave with our viewers?
I do want to add, there's such a need to have clinicians at the forefront, and there are pathways as well for neurologists and people from any specialty to go into a fellowship in clinical informatics. There are also training opportunities and certifications that aren't just the clinical informatics fellowship, but there are pathways. If this is something that's interesting to people, I love to hear people that are interested in it. I want to show them and support them all along the way if they're interested. But the more physicians, the more neurologists, the more clinicians that we get involved and trained appropriately, then that's going to help out overall and help us to develop these things, these tools, and implement them in ways that are safe and ethical.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Rousseau, thank you again. This has been
you.
great.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us for this edition of the Business of Neurology. Stay tuned for further episodes in this series on artificial intelligence and other episodes in the video series of the Business of Neurology. Until next time.